It's Legends territory. Scotty Braun and Erik Kratz in the same place. And cheers to our MLB Players Alumni Association family for setting up these conversations. And you can check out baseballalumni.com for more info on your favorite former players. Quick reminder, if you're watching on YouTube, the podcast version of this show is on Apple and Spotify. And now let's bring in the next legend. 5-year big leaguer with the Mets and then a great run managing the Minnesota Twins, including a 2010 Manager of the Year award and not one, not two, not three, not four, 5 times finishing runner-up for Manager of the Year in the bigs, and then eventually skipper with the Detroit Tigers. He was just inducted into the Twins Hall of Fame in 2022. And let's bring in Ron Gardenhire right now on Legends territory, chilling in the RV. Gardy, how are you?
Absolutely. It's all good. Feeling good.
Yeah, how's life? And are you watching a lot of baseball these days?
Yeah, I do. Up in Minnesota, I go to the Saints games quite a bit. My son's managing those guys, so that's kind of fun. And I watch baseball. I'll turn it on and click on it and check, see how everybody's doing.
You cool with these rules, with these rule changes so far? I mean, the game gets done a little bit quicker. Of course, they wait until after you're done managing.
Yeah, I like it. I do like it. I think it's going pretty good. I think we all know that people get a little frustrated when the games are so long and everything. And us on the field, we didn't really worry about that. But I like it. I like the way the game's going. I think it's easier, on the umpires and the whole package. So I think it looks pretty good so far.
So is your son doing a good job? Is he going to be a big league manager soon, or is he getting thrown out too many games like his old man?
I just hope that he doesn't get fired, so I have to put him on my payroll. I just that's the only worry.
Love that. Love that. What is we're going to get right into it. What is your playing career? How did that help your managing career?
Well, I think the greatest part for me was you played for a few different managers. You got to see how each one of them handled different situations and all those things. And I thought, being around Joe Torre was a lot of fun for me, as a player. And I had a lot of good conversations once he went into the offices. And you know what? Like I said, Davey Johnson was a great manager. He did it his way, a little different. So a lot of the managers, had their own style, and I got to see it all. So it kind of picked out what I like and what I thought the players wanted, and kind of went from there.
Did you want to be a manager when you were playing? Like you had a lot of injuries. Like, did those injuries make you become a manager, or was it kind of one of those things where you were like, oh crap, like I didn't quite make the Hall of Fame as a player, so now I'm going to make it as a manager?
No, not really. I just think that I sucked just good enough as a player that I figured it was going to go quick, and I was just happy to stay in the game. I managed in the minor leagues. I had a lot of fun managing in the minor leagues with the Twins, Double A, and all those things. And I just wanted to stay in the game. I love the game of baseball, and everybody kept saying when I was a player, "You swing so bad, you're going to end up coaching somewhere." So there you have it.
It worked out well. So
Yeah.
give me your most fun player to manage in your career and most challenging or difficult or annoying, or all three if you want.
Well, I think probably we had a lot of easy players: Michael Kadire, Joe Mauer, Morney. That's just to name some of those guys. They were really easy to manage. They went about their business very professionally, and we had really good ball clubs with the Twins. Those players, they were all fantastic. They worked their tails off, and I enjoyed that part of it. And some of the guys that drove you crazy, AJ, which I still love to death. I would love to talk to him on a day-to-day basis, just to see how ornery he is still. So, and we had a lot of players that tried to get underneath your skin, which that made it fun too.
Do you feel like Charlie Manuel always said, "Well, I'm only as good as my players"? Do you feel like that's true, or do you feel like you say that because of the environment that you're putting yourself in?
I think the environment, kind of dictates a lot of that stuff. It's true. You got to have good players. There's no doubt about it. You have to have neat players that know how to play, and that's up to the manager. I think if you can voice your opinion on what you like to see out of a ball club and try to make it work, that's a good thing. And you guys all honestly know when you have veteran players, they know what to do. They do their thing. So I always ask them to help me out with some of the younger players and make sure they're on the same page of us. And I was lucky. I had a lot of really good players that kind of handled themselves well.
Was there ever a time though where you were like, "Yeah, that was me. I made the right call on that one, but I'm still just going to put it on the players and say that they did great," or vice versa, where you're like, "You know what? It's really not me, but I'm going to take the hit here."
Yeah, I mean, that's manager always has to stand up in front of the press after a ball game, and the players. I always felt bad when players would or the press would always be around one of the players, and he had a little rough spot going on, and I always wanted to go in there and tell him leave the guy alone. If you only knew how hard this doggone game was, and then you should just understand a little bit better about how hard the game is. And I know the press has to do their job, which is very important, but I always wanted to protect the players. That was part of my job.
What was the least favorite part of your job as a manager?
Uh, Press conferences. We thought you get tough questions in there, and lucky in Minnesota, the press was unbelievable. They were great, fantastic people, and they understood, and they kind of let you talk to them about what how it works here, and I always liked that they understood I did it this way, and I'd like you guys to jump on board. So I was pretty lucky in Minnesota.
Do you feel like you could have managed in a major media market where the press is asses?
Yeah, I could have. I wouldn't have had a problem doing that. I played in New York, and I had people know more about my family tree than in the stands than I did. And you know what? I wore it. I knew I sucked, but you just go live with it.
Gardy, I think Twins fans are hoping that maybe this is the year, or next year is the year. Not only do they want to advance in the postseason, they want to beat the shit out of the Yankees one time. So how much did that come up? And I'm not a big I'm not a big historical guy where you talk to a player and you go, "Hey, this hasn't happened since whatever." And even this year, there was a moment where Byron Buxton had one of those Yankee stats brought up, and where they hadn't beaten him in a series, blah blah blah, in this amount of time, and he was like, and I genuinely believe it. He was like, "Oh, really? Oh, I didn't even realize that," But I do think at some point we got to look at this and be like, what the hell is going on? Why can't the Twins one time just hand it to the Yanks, especially because they keep meeting up in the postseason?
And that's what happened to us quite a bit. And you guys know, man, the Yankees, they don't screw around. They go and get the best players, and they're not afraid to spend money. And that's why they won. They put together teams out there that if you screw up one time, they'll take advantage of it. We had that happen so many times in the playoffs. We were one play away or a call down the left field line that was fair that they called foul, which I'll never ever forget that one. But you know what? It's they got good teams, and they're very professional. I was always amazed watching Jeter and those guys. My goodness gracious, they just played the game, and they were good, and they knew what they were doing. And we had young teams, but we competed with them. But it always come down in the playoffs. It seemed like, and they got us.
Did you feel like their talent was better, or did you feel like it was like you said, that one play down the left field line, like going through that moment? Are you like, oh, this is the one bad thing, like we can't let anything bad? Or did you guys feel like you were as talented, if not more?
Oh, we always felt like we could play with them. We played them during the season. We had to play them, and we played well against them. But those really good players that like I said, they had the guys, the Giambis, the whole package. That man, they just knew how to come up in big situations and not to put too much pressure on themselves and come up with the big hits. Great at bats, and that's something that we had to learn from, and we got better as it went along. We had a few guys that could do those things, but we changed a little bit more than they did.
Do you think that the game needs to balance things out more with, like, say, the heavyweights versus the teams that don't usually spend as much? Or do you feel like it's in an okay place in terms of balance? I mean, of course, this year you have plenty of ball clubs that were not expected to do much that are making quite a bit of noise.
And I think baseball's fine. Start trying to put salary caps on all this and that, and it's been good. It's been great, and it's still great. and it's always going to be great as long as we leave it alone and just let things happen as they might. Ownership, they're the ones that aren't afraid to give out the money, the bigger, teams in the markets, and that's good for them. I feel players deserve that stuff. We play that many baseball games during the course of a summer. You know what? You should get paid, and that's the greatest thing about the game of baseball. There's a lot of money, and the Twins have started paying a little bit more. They got a good ball club this year. I like watching them. So, you know what? That's part of the game, and you just got to deal with it. You can't cry about it, and like AJ did, you just go about your business. I had to throw
love picking him when he's down.
Oh, I love it.
And he's not here.
He's not here, but it's okay. We'll send him all, so don't feel like you're talking behind his back. We'll send him all.
He'll
this
be
stuff.
listening to this. Yes.
He'll definitely be listening while he's in a rain delay at his son's tournament.
Oh, geez. I love.
Do you feel like this? Do you feel like baseball is better than it's ever been? Because I'm gonna give you my opinion. Is guys are throwing harder, guys are hitting the ball farther, running just as fast. But do you feel like baseball is better than it has been in your entire career, playing or managing?
Well, I'm kind of the old school guy. So before all analytics came in and all this stuff, that's kind of why I got out of the game, because the game was starting to pass me by a little bit, and I didn't want people that probably deserve to be in that situation just because I've been there a while. So I think, but analytics and all that stuff has changed the game a little bit. But you know what? It's still played on the field. It will never ever not be played on the field, and that's still the greatest part. You got to put together a team, and you got to get them all on the same page. And I don't think that's ever going to change.
Did people try and tell you how to make your lineup or make certain decisions? I mean, there's a difference between, hey, let's talk things out, let me provide information, versus, hey, this is really what we're going to push across the table for you to do. Because there's definitely been complaints over the past, decade plus from managers, especially managers that had been in the game for a while and felt like they didn't need the help, or they didn't need the push. Give me the info, let me make my own decisions.
And I think that's pretty much what I had going on with whoever it would be, the press or other, some of my coaches. I always wanted their input. That's part of it. You can't, as a manager, you better use all the people in that clubhouse, players too. Talk to them on what we can do better. And the same thing with my coaching staff. I wanted them, if they think that I should have done something, then please come in and tell me, because we'll try to make it better. And I had a heck of a coaching staff. And we had good players. We were lucky. We had good players. I just wish we could have won a few more playoff games and actually kicked the Yankees' butt, but that ain't easy either.
Hey, what about the Tigers right now? So you said you're watching some Twins, you're enjoying it. They have a great pitching staff. Their run prevention's been good. I know the Twins have work to do on offense to pick things up, and they've had some injuries. On the Tigers front, I mean, you went through some tough times there during a rebuild. Unfortunately, it's still going on. I mean, I remember visiting you multiple times in spring training where you're like, hey, listen, like, this team is not yet built to win. I got to be part of this process. And you filled a major void there that was needed for players that are coming up to the show and are not used to losing and have to be able to take that while the team is reloading, and they had a really great run. So now you would figure they're at a point that they would be successful, and it's just still not there yet.
I just think, and I do pay attention to them. I actually love my time in Detroit. Al Avila was a general manager, and you don't get any. He's just an old baseball guy. We would sit down and talk about things. He came in my office and yelled at me more than once, and I loved every minute of it. When he'd walk out, he'd get a little flare going on, and I always thought those things were great. And you know what? With Detroit, we had young players, but we had some veterans too. And as a manager, when you get to manage guys like Victor Martinez, Cabrera, all those guys, that's pretty good feeling when you're standing on the field with guys that are pretty much Hall of Famers, and you get to watch them. And yeah, we didn't win all the games we wanted to in Detroit. And I think what's gone on with them right now is we had pitchers coming up that were, my goodness gracious, young stars, and they got hurt, which happens in the game too. So I think once they rebound from that and get those young pitchers again, I think they'll be competing really well.
Do you think Avila got a raw deal? I mean, I know, we actually have spoken to him on our other show, Foul Territory, and he kind of went over his time there and brought up a lot of similar points that you're making right now. I mean, there's a lot of pitching that's just not on the field at the moment that has talent. He also said at the same time, there were some trades that have been made that have not gone Detroit's way. Like, of course, Austin Meadows dealing with what he's got off the field, but the other side of that trade is Isaac Paredes is maybe an all-star this year.
Yeah, and I had him, and I remember busting his tail because he missed the bus in spring training, and we all knew the kid could hit. I mean, the guy could flat out hit, and we all knew that going in. But he needed to be straightened up a little bit, and learn our language a little bit better and understand a little bit better. But we all knew there was going to be a time when this guy got it and he was going to hit, and he's doing it now. And I've watched him, over there where he's at now, and we knew that. I mean, we had players that we said if they stay with the program, they're going to be good. And I thought Detroit, we had a lot of talent, and hopefully they'll bounce back and get going again. But they got a great manager. That guy knows what he's doing, and if they can get them healthy, they'll be fine.
We've got word from your guy Pierzynski. So he said 2 questions. Number 1, he said, "Why are you not responding to my texts?" And 2, why did you have his chair in your office?
Why did I have what?
He said,
"Why his own chair?"
His own chair.
Yeah, that was a bar stool. I had to put him in my office every time he came in there. AJ was game on. You guys know that he's a tough player out there, and he wasn't afraid to say what he wanted to. And him and I, we had our battles. And he would come in and want to talk to me, and I'm like, AJ, I don't have time. Just go out and please get a hit. That's all you need to do. But he, you know what? Great, game on. You guys know him. Game on. He's not afraid to say what he feels. Yeah, he irritates the living fire out of you, but I loved him dearly, and I still do. And he was a good player for us.
What's your
Don't
favorite?
tell him I said that. I hope he's not listening.
He doesn't listen. He doesn't listen. He just talks.
That's right.
What is your favorite AJ Pierzynski story? Because he was a rookie coming up, and you had to deal with everything that was him as a young guy.
Oof. Yeah, you know what? We had to calm him down. The strikeout, ball goes back to the backstop. He's carrying his bat to first base like he's going to hit the first baseman with it. That type of stuff. So we had to calm him down and tell him this is big league baseball, AJ. The normal AJ person he is. Come in my office and want to know why he's batting like 8th in the lineup or 7th in the lineup. And I always told him things like, well, we need to make sure you get your gear off so you're ready to hit. AJ will always step out and say what he's feeling, which that's what you want from players. You know what? And he's not afraid to talk to anybody or say anything. He would fight his own teammates if he had to.
Then you brought in Joe Mauer, who doesn't have that fire out. How is that comparison? Both really good players, both leaders, both same position. How is that comparison, and how do you deal with both of those?
Well, AJ, he required a little bit more attention than Joe Mauer would. Joe just, went about his business. But AJ was needed. At the time, we had a young team, the Torrey Hunters and all those guys, Jock Jones. We had a young team, and AJ was a huge part of it. I mean, guys, yelled at him a lot, but he wanted to win probably as much as any player I had. And he was game on, and he got it done. He worked hard the whole package, and believe me, he's in the clubhouse. He stirred it up, which I liked. I didn't have to do any of that, and he meant a lot to our baseball team. And he was a fighter, like you guys know.
You managed another big personality, although he probably blossomed a lot more with his personality after you managed him based on the success that he had on the field later on. So you managed a young David Ortiz in 2002. Now, I heard that you were begging the organization, please do not let this guy go. And then, of course, they let him go, and he becomes a legend. So what was that like, and is that story true?
Well, I mean, David was one of those guys that would light up the tunnel when you come walking out. He would say things. I can say, "Hey, my bitches, how we doing?" You know what I mean? And we would go from there, and that was David. He just came to play, and you know what? We loved him. I mean, I don't know what would have happened with our baseball team without that guy in that dugout at that time. Because when he came walking in, I mean, he really got it done as far as running the ballpark and running the clubhouse. But we loved him, and you know what? It was sad to let him go. I mean, it's all money about the Twins and stuff like that. But we ended up letting him go, and he went on to just kill it somewhere else, which was heartbreaking for all of us because we knew how much he meant for our baseball team. But you know what? That's baseball, and you know what? Like class act. I love that guy.
What happened? What did people say once you saw what he was doing with a different organization?
Well, I mean, you try to just you wish him good luck. I mean, as always I do with every player, whether they get in a contract and leave the whole package, I'm not mad at them or anything like that. I'm happy for them. It's all about getting the best job, the best contract, and everything. And those guys all did that. They went out and got good contracts. David eventually did, and made a ton of money in it, and good for him.
Now, was there somebody else that you were the one that was like fighting to keep him? Was there somebody else where you're like, oh, I fought for this guy, or was there somebody I fought for and shoot, like I missed it? Like, what were other guys that you fought?
Well, there was, we had a bunch of those guys that we started out with my first year as a manager, and we had a group. Those guys all grew up together, from Doug Mientkiewicz to AJ, the whole package, Louis Rivas, Christian Guzman, Koski at third base. We had a group. Torrey Hunter was in center. I mean, you think about all that team, and they all moved on. And I was happy for them. I'm always happy for these guys to get their contracts and everything. But once that starts, where your ball club's going to end up being. We're going to be in a little bit of a rebuild, and we had to do that in Minnesota. We had some restraints, money wise, and that kind of always took you back. But our players kept playing, and we just had to keep moving forward.
Not saying you regret managing in Minnesota, but did you ever envision like being in a big market? Like, wow, what would it be like to be able to keep Corey Koski, to be able to keep Torrey Hunter, to be able to keep all these guys for their entire career?
Well, that's part of it, being in a smaller market baseball team. But I will tell you this: I love Minnesota. My family, my wife actually went to high school up there. And you know what? So we had a wonderful time in Minnesota with the team. We won a lot of baseball games. We had a lot of great players, and the good thing, I guess, being a manager is finally seeing players are actually wanted by other teams, and we end up making trades, or they become a free agent and go make a ton of money and finish off a great career. That you root for those things as a manager, and I did, and I hated seeing them come back and kill us. But you know what? That's part of the game. And as a manager, you did your job. You got them in the ball games, and they did their job. So you can't feel bad about it. You just have to keep moving.
I'm going to give you some stats, not specific numbers, but I'll just let you know that Doug Mientkiewicz was on this show, and his episode had more downloads than any other ball player that we've had on this show. You're smiling. You're probably not surprised. Was he always like that, where he completely spoke his mind no matter what the consequences would be?
I screamed at him more than I would my own kids. He he did it on purpose though. You know what, there was something behind him. He didn't just come out and just blare stuff out. He thought about it, and he would come up, and even in the dugout when something wasn't going right, he'd complain. I had him batting third in our lineup, and everybody thought I was nuts. And that's because he knew what he was doing. He could play first base, he could hit, and you just had to put up with the talking, which I did. I loved him. He was a good player, solid at first base, but he drove us crazy. But that's part of the game too, as a manager.
Do you think that he should be involved in the game? Because he was, and like for example, in Minnesota, I mean, you talk to most of the players, they loved him. It's fun to talk to, like you said. He was thoughtful. He was friends with the guys, but also could have the separation of managing them, which is a lot of the key ingredients you need as a skipper. And it sounded like, if anything, he was butting heads more with organizations, right? Like with the Twins and the Tigers. I think he was part of that org too. And it sounded like it had more to do with front office people than it had to do with players.
I think it was all part of it. He wanted to be a part of it, and as far as Buttonhead, yeah, we always told him, Dougie, would you, instead of going to the newspaper and venting, about the men in the front office and all those things, can just go talk to them. Walk up the stairs face to face and go talk to them. I do it all the time. They tell me to go back to my office, and that's one thing that he didn't like to do. He liked to talk to the press. So yeah, he got himself in some hot water, but you know what? That's his personality.
Talk to me about the Piranhas. Ozzie
Oh,
Guillen talking about the Piranhas. What is this? What does that encapsulate? Like as you as a manager, your players.
well, we had to play a certain brand of game because we had speed. We run all over the place and drove people crazy. We bunted, we hit and run, we did all kinds of stuff. We only had a couple of guys, power guys like David and guys like that. But I think that's what Ozzie said, because we had little bitty guys slapping the ball all over the place, stealing bases, uh, and running all over, and it drove Ozzie crazy. He had a big bunch of guys that could hit home runs over there in Chicago, and we had to do it our way. And Ozzie, he nicknamed them, and we had big signs of the Piranhas and O package, and I mean, you think about it, Nick Punto, guys like that. How many teams could Nicky really, really play for and get a chance to play every day like he did? You know, and we did. Because he fit in with all of our guys, and he drove people crazy, and we love that.
And you kind of made that your mantra, your mentality, and it's what helped you guys win. You got Gogo up there when he was young, sliding all over the place. Do you think a team now could adopt this and be better than they are right now if you look around the league?
I absolutely do. If you get the right people and put them together and have a manager that that's what he wants to do. He wants to drive people crazy. Not, I mean, analytics has changed a little bit. We don't really want to get people thrown out stealing and all stuff like that. And it's changed. And I don't think that's everybody in the analytics departments. I just think that some teams are doing it their way, and it might be all fine for them, but the way we did it was out there. We wanted to push the envelope and make the other teams nervous, because we had pitchers. When we get a guy in first base, they knew at one time or another we were going to run or hit and run or do something, and that's how we had to play to win. And I don't, I think there's some teams that still do that right now. I watch them and they play the game, and it's different. So it's just part of it, and you just got to live with it. And we did, but we loved it. We had a ball.
And do you think it is? You said if a manager wants to do that, if a man, do you think there are many managers that are allowed to coach the game, or do you think it has to be something that like, okay, like the Diamondbacks are kind of like that right now. They fly all around the field. That has to be a front office decision that allows the manager to do it, or do you think it's something that you could have an alpha manager come in and be like, no, I really think with this, restricted payroll, we can do this kind of thing to be able to get more wins.
Yeah, Torey Lovello is I was with him over in Arizona when couple of years I was out there with him. And you know what? He's a very intelligent baseball guy. He's got a great head on his shoulders. And you know what? And he's a guy that I would say is not afraid to do it with what he has, if that's going to work. And Torey does a super job. I've always loved that guy. And like I said, I love my time spent with Arizona. And, he's kind of like that. He's not afraid to run around the bases. And honestly, it's what you have. If you don't have home run hitters, you better figure out something else. And we did that. We did that in Minnesota quite a few times.
And find a way to win, and you guys won a lot.
Yeah,
Now,
that's good.
four of your managers that you had, you already mentioned Joe, and you already mentioned Dave. You played for George Bamberger, and you also played for Frank Howard. Now you have to choose. You have to choose. Who's your favorite?
My favorite manager?
Yeah.
Oh boy, I was just a futility player, man. You're asking a guy to rate my managers. I was just happy to be there. Every one of them I loved to death, because I really couldn't hit a lick, and they'd keep me in the big leagues, which I love. But Davy Johnson, I'll say Davy Johnson. He managed me in AAA, and then he basically brought me up to the big leagues when he got the Mets manager's job. And this is no knock on any of the other managers. I had Joe Torre, which was the calmest guy I've ever been around, and he was my first big league manager. But, Davey Johnson, he was kind of one of those analytics guy too, a very intelligent guy, great with numbers. And I had a lot of fun playing with him. You could say Wally Backman and I, we would talk trash about him right in front of him, and he'd just laugh. And we loved every minute of it because he was kind of one of us.
And so, which one are you most like as a manager?
I just tried to do it my way. I'm a little hot-headed. I wasn't afraid to go out and get thrown out of ball games, and I think I took a little bit from a bunch of those guys. Joe Torre was the calm guy that set people down, come in my office, that type of stuff. George Bamberger, he was hilarious, one of the funniest guys ever. Put bubble gum on his hat, and I'd always ask him why. So I had a lot of different guys managing me, and that was the great thing about it. I learned from them all, and I took a little bit and kind of decided to make it myself. My dad was military, so I grew up in a military family, and it was all about staying within the what you can do and what you can't do. And I think I was helped along by a lot of really good baseball people, and I'll take them all and say Davey Johnson he really helped me a lot. Joe Torre, the calmest guy ever. So you just go on, and they were good people.
Do you know how many career ejections you were a part of?
Yeah, my wife tells me all the time. She had to write I think it was 70 something.
I got 84 here, so close.
You might be counting minor leaguer ones.
I might, which probably the stories are just as good. So do you have one that sticks out, one favorite? I know for many fans, especially when they're at the game, and there's a real good back and forth going on with manager and ump, especially as they're getting booted from the game. You're dying to have mics up to just hear a little piece of that conversation and know, is it super intense? Is it some BS and the manager's just trying to get thrown out? So take us inside some of those conversations.
Oh, you know what? And this is one thing that I always told myself I needed to do. I as a manager, I'm not going to get any hits to win a game. I'm not going to throw any strikes. All I know is when a player started getting in and out there, my job was to defend the players and get them out of there so that they would stay in the game. So I would always, and I did it very well, turn the umpire's ire on me, and they'd forget all about the player. And that's kind of what I wanted. So I had coaches that could run the game, and if they wanted something, they needed something, they'd come up and ask me, what do you want to do? But I had a great coaching staff. I trusted them. So getting thrown out, there's a lot of times I got thrown out that I'm like, I should be in the clubhouse because I suck right now. So go run it. So there you have it.
Do you have any specific run-ins that you remember that were like super memorable, whether it's, with a certain ump that you had a fun relationship with or a heated relationship with just because you guys had a lot of back and forth?
I had, I had some umpires that we got after it. Hunter Wendelstedt and I, early in my career, we argued a bunch and he threw me out a bunch, but we talked it over more than once. You know what? At one point, he came, God bless his soul, he came walking in the dugout. I think it was in Minnesota, and he had a picture of him throwing me out of a game. And he took it out of his umpire shirt and showed it to me in the dugout with my team as he was walking out to umpire. Now, that one killed me. I absolutely thought that was the best.
He brought a prop.
He brought a prop. He printed it out. Did you sign it for him?
Of him throwing me out and showed it to me in the dugout as they were walking out to do the lineup cards. I didn't even go out with a lineup card after that. I was laughing. I sent one of my coaches out because he did that. That was funny.
That's good.
That's good.
Did you see what Dave Martinez did this season recently where he didn't like the what is it? The interference at first?
Yeah, non-interference.
The non-interference call, and he had the printout that he was showing the press. He had a little rant, and then we were all fingers crossed. Please bring that out pregame tomorrow, and he didn't do it as a prop.
That's too bad. He should have done it. He probably got fined, but he should have done it.
It would have been made for a quicker game for him too. I don't think he would have made it to the first pitch.
No.
Absolutely. I got pitched in the first inning a few times. All related from the day before, Sometimes you get in those situations, all you want to do is talk to them, and they kind of like blow you off with the hands. Nothing makes you madder than that, because then you got to spend it. You're thinking about it all night long. Then you get to the park and it's a day game, and you go out to home plate, and next thing you know, you start in again and you get thrown out again.
So you don't go into that thinking I'm probably going to get thrown out, or are you sitting there going, no, there's no way. I just want to explain myself, and then just we'll see you.
Nah, I wanted to get thrown out.
Yeah.
Mostly on, if it was a day game, and I got thrown out the night before, I'm going right back out there, because a lot of guys say I'm not going to talk to them. I took the lineup card out, and then one thing led to another, and I'd be gone again. So, you know what? My wife, she turned around, didn't have to buy tickets, and would drive back home many a times. I got thrown out before she even got to the game. So that's the part I didn't like.
For sure. So you had to take the ride home with her, and she was pissed. But does she ever get to eject you now that you're done? Does she ever be like, Ron,
to the RV?
To the RV.
No, do you see this finger? When I get that finger, that's enough right there. Just don't say another word, because when she gives me the finger and holds it up, that's it. Stop. Tough woman.
That's like you throw at him, you get the warning. Next one, you're out.
That's it. No doubt.
And you never take it. And you never get that far.
Well, you guys know that I married a Shocker, right? A Wichita State Shocker. I thought, how can you not marry a girl that goes to Wichita State and she's a Shocker, right? That might have been the only way I could find a girl that thought I was good looking.
That's good. That's good.
That's true love.
That is true love. She picked a winner, though. I'll hand it to you, Gardy. Great conversation with you. Great to reminisce a little bit and to see you as well. So enjoy the fam time, and hopefully some Twins winning baseball for you, maybe even in the postseason against those Yanks. That'd
be good. They got a nice ball club. There's everybody goes through a little bit of this and that, but they're playing pretty good right now.
Agreed. Yeah, they're in control.
Well, I appreciate it, guys. Make sure you tell AJ I said hello, and I do mean it. Hello, AJ, because I miss him. I need somebody to irritate me, and he does a good job of that.
We'll bring you back sometime just so you can pick on AJ for an hour, all right?
Sounds great. All right, guys. Appreciate it.
Props to the MLB Players Alumni Association for making this all happen with us behind the scenes. And you can head to baseballalumni.com for much more information on your favorite former players and catch new episodes of this show on Foul Territory's YouTube channel every single week or wherever you get your podcasts. Kratz, I'm Braun. We'll see you next time on Legends Territory.